I'm gonna act up. I'ma need you to back up. I'ma need you to back up. Yep. I'ma need you to back up. Spilling the tea, you stirring the cup. I'ma need you to back up. I'ma need you to back up. Yep.
Hello, welcome to Disrupt. My name's Jason Schwab. I'm a producer at RestaurantSpaces, and this is Disrupt, like I just said, which is our little LinkedIn live show. What do we do on Disrupt? We go out into the restaurant industry. I do some stalking right here on LinkedIn, actually, and then I find a bunch of people who are transforming the restaurant industry. We bring them on. We have a little 20-minute chat so that maybe you can walk away with an idea or two that gets you thinking differently about how you do your thing. We have a great guest lined up for today on episode 9. We've been at this for 9 episodes now. His name is Peter Scialla. He is the president of Delos and also the co-founder of the International Well Building Institute. Now, if you aren't really familiar with any of the syllables that just fell out of my mouth, that is okay, because we're going to get Peter on in just a moment to explain a bit more about what they do. But in short, Peter and the team at the International Well Building Institute, or IWBI for short, working to champion the healthy buildings movement, which, let's face it, has never been more prominent or more important than right now. And you guys know this, you guys build and design restaurants. And when the pandemic hit at the start of last year, you started scrambling to COVID-proof your locations. So it's a really important conversation to be having, but it's bigger than COVID, actually, right? Making healthier buildings needs to be a priority for anyone who designs and builds them, because we spend a lot of time in buildings. As much as 90% of our time is spent in a building. Maybe that's not you. Maybe you're a fitness fanatic. Maybe you were out just in the sun a little while ago, 3 or 4 hours ago. Good for you. But maybe if you're like me, you realize running from thing to thing to thing to thing, you don't really get to see the sun. When is the last time you saw the sun? I've gone on a tangent and I'm really sorry. Let's just get Peter on right now, and we're going to talk more about this and see what he has to say. Peter, are you there? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you. How are you?
I'm really well. But when's the last time you saw the sun, Peter?
This morning.
Okay.
But not for pleasure, but I was outside this morning. It's important to get outside and get sunlight every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most days until I finish work, it's kind of I go from my place to the Uber, and then from the Uber to where I'm working, and that's kind of it.
Right.
But
not a healthy thing to do.
Thank you, Peter, for letting me know that. No, but you're absolutely right. Enough of that, though. Let's jump straight into it, Peter.
Yeah.
Let's start with Delos. Delos. What exactly is Delos? Can you tell us how it came to be, and just give our audience a bit more background information on that?
Sure. Delos is a company that operates at the intersection of real estate and the health and wellness industry by introducing things that work passively on human health well-being in real estate assets. We noticed that the spaces that we occupy every day, right? We spend over, as you said, and you illuminated, right? Over 90% of our time we're spent indoors, in our homes, our schools, our offices. And our observation was that since the indoor environment is having a profound impact on our health and well-being, that there are things we can do to measure, validate, and improve those spaces aimed at increasing the outcomes, the health outcomes for the occupants inside. Kind of like what the green building movement is for the health of the environment. We pioneered a new movement called the Well Building movement, which is focused on occupant health, not just environmental health, in the broader category of course, sustainability.
Right. So you brought up just LEED there, and then the parallels between that. So exactly what is Well's mission then, and what are the kind of similar parallels to LEED, and what do you do, and how do you make buildings healthier?
Excellent. So through our subsidiary, the International Well Building Institute, we administer a program called Well Certification. We introduced the Well Building Standard to the industry in 2015. Which is a certification program for healthy buildings that measures and validates the effect that buildings have on occupants inside and encourages a number of interventions, such as improving air quality, water quality, lighting, sound, acoustics, things like that, all aimed at increasing the health, well-being, and productivity of people inside any type of space. So anything with four walls and a roof. The WELL certification program has proliferated around the globe in over 90 countries now, upwards of 2.5 billion square feet of restaurants and hotels, stadiums, office buildings, hospitals, daycare centers, all looking to get certified and validated by a third party that what they do as it relates to architecture, design, and of course, operations and maintenance is targeted towards increasing health and safety and of course, well-being for the occupants inside their spaces.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's a really great overview in a nutshell there, Peter. And I'm wondering, for an organization to get that accreditation, get that certification, well, what's kind of involved there? What kind of work do they need to put in to hold up to that standard?
Excellent, excellent. So, from the broader body of work of WELL certification, industry groups asked us last year for a sub-designation called the WELL Health Safety Rating. And we looked at, all types of ways to intervene. But coming out of the pandemic, we created this health safety rating as a mechanism for organizations to inspire confidence to their stakeholders, whether it's their staff, their guests, all of the people in their audience, that their spaces are operated with health and wellness and safety in mind. So the WELL Health Safety Rating is a documentation review of any facility's operational protocols related to surface hygiene, right? So cleaning and sanitization, emergency preparedness, employee and stakeholder engagement, and it is a submission of documents to our International Well Building Institute for third-party review, and ultimately awarding a seal, a WELL seal on the front entrance of any facility, including restaurants, that can be a sign of confidence for patrons of those spaces, that the documents have been reviewed from operational protocols, and of course, architectural and design. You can go as far as you want on your WELL journey, but the health safety designation is certainly limited to the category of health safety. And that third-party review is a sign of confidence that we're not just taking the word of owners and operators here, that a third party has validated that these protocols and procedures are grounded in science, are grounded in evidence, and address things like pathogen transmission, right? Of course, things like COVID, but broader than that, in the broader category of health safety. The messaging is so important when people see a seal on the door that designates that a third party has reviewed these policies and procedures. It does increase consumer confidence.
Yeah, and thanks for outlining, just why it's so beneficial and important for a third party kind of perspective on that, and then how that appears or what message that sends to the public or the guests that are coming to these locations. And I want to jump to that in just a bit, but let's take it back in terms of, for restaurant chains that are interested in the WELL Health Safety Rating, what's involved there? I mean, they've done a lot of work over the last few months to, make their locations healthier, safer, especially with everything that we've been through. What kind of things need to be ticked off, or what do they need to have in place in order to get that sort of certification specifically?
Yeah, excellent. There are a number of industry groups that have done a phenomenal job. When I think about senior housing facilities, when I think about hotels, when I think about restaurants, in responding to the pandemic, there have been a number of changes to their internal policies, and then some of these policies have been in place for many years. This is a chance to get rewarded and acknowledged for that with the third-party validation, and it does not involve any capital expenditures or any changes to the architecture or design of the building. The health safety rating simply is a review of the policies that are in place, and so there's 21 criteria in the health safety rating covering the categories that I described. Cleaning and sanitization, emergency preparedness, stakeholder engagement, communication. These are policies that, for the most part, exist with most organizations. In some cases, there would need to be, some slight pivots or edits and changes to the policy. But with rigor, we measure that documentation submission and either award the designation or not. This does not involve capital outlay or buying new, air purification units in the HVAC. This is about monitoring. This is about policy. This is about governing those policies. And it is purely a documentation submission. So it's not a very heavy lift, provided that the policies exist and that they are rooted in science and up to our standards.
Perfect. And I just want to follow up on that then. And before I do, if you're out there, you're watching, you've got any questions about the Well Health safety rating, then please throw them up here on the side in the chat, and we'll get to them before we finish chatting today with Peter. But I guess, to get to the nuts and bolts of it, Peter, if, is there a cost involved with getting that seal on the door and having this documentation approved and processed?
Yes, there is. And the cost is limited to the fees for the program. But where this really becomes economical is if there are multiple locations. For instance, if one particular ownership group has 50 restaurants, the documentation process is still one submission. So as the volume of buildings that are governed by those policies increases, the economics truly scale. For one location, you're talking about $2,000 or $3,000 in this sector for a document review. But as you submit 10, 15, 20 locations at a time, and I know the big brands and the big franchises, they could drive their costs all the way down to $50 or $60 per location because one set of documents governs many, many locations. And we certainly don't, charge for each location a separate documentation review if the process can be streamlined. So super, super relevant and accessible for the types of organizations, ownership groups, franchisor-franchisee relationships where one set of policies does govern many places and the costs become quite accessible in that regard. And remember, those costs are for the documentation review. There are no hidden costs, like, oh, no, I have to go buy X, Y, and Z in order to satisfy the criteria. It's strictly policies and protocols. And for the most part, categories that people are covering with documentation already. This is about submitting that documentation for review. Okay,
perfect. Thanks for outlining that. And Peter, you said before, there are some industries that do this really well. This is a priority for them. You mentioned senior living and some other industries there. Coming into the restaurant industry, I mean, what's the response been like so far? How are brands taking to this? And I don't know if you can talk about any partnerships you might already have or anything that might be in the works.
Yeah, excellent. So here's the good news, right? We have gotten a profound response from commercial office buildings and from stadiums. JP Morgan, for instance, has achieved the Well Health Safety rating on all 6,000 of their bank branches. Many of the other organizations that have a number of locations, especially facing the consumer, have gone through the program. In fact, we're north of 1 billion square feet, and the Well program has taken enrollments in over 90 countries around the globe. So you're talking about tens of thousands of facilities right now with some high pedigree names. For instance, in the stadium space, Yankee Stadium led the charge. The Dallas Cowboys followed. There are now several dozen other stadiums that are either in pursuit or have been awarded the health safety seal, which is a great sign of confidence for fans re-entering these spaces. In the hotel landscape, leaders like Aimbridge Hospitality, Lowe's Hotels, so big brand names, T-Mobile stores, where you'll see every retail T-Mobile location, working towards achievement of the health safety rating. And thankfully, this is sector agnostic. So when we think about the opportunity for restaurants to follow suit and follow hotels, senior living, office spaces, stadiums, it is not limited to one typology. We're making investment in the restaurant sector now to continue to make outreach and raise awareness. There are several players, large players that are in motion for the designation across all of their franchise locations. They are private at this point. When they award the designation, that will be public, but there's been great uptick and we're not surprised. This is a sector that faces consumers. Consumers want to know that, the folks operating these spaces have been checked and that the facts are measured against science to make sure that they are in place. And that's not a claim being made by the owner, but rather a third party.
Yeah, this sounds like some really exciting things in the mix there, Peter. Yeah. And I guess watch this space in terms of some of the brands that are coming on portfolio wide like you mentioned. I imagine it's kind of like LEED, right? Once it was like a snowball effect, right? Once one big brand started doing it, then everyone else kind of followed, and it just quickly became a standard. So I just want to jump here, Peter, quickly to, I just got a couple of audience questions coming in. First one is from Dominic Talavera from Rubio's. And he asks, are there any partial certifications, or does it have to be all or nothing?
Yeah, the health safety rating is all or none. The bigger body of work, well certification, covering air, water, light, sleep, mind, sound, a number of different categories, is a point system where there's various levels to achieve, baseline, silver, gold, platinum, that sort of thing. But the health safety rating is a pass-fail. It's all or none. That does not mean that if a first submission doesn't make it through, that you cannot make the adjustments necessary, of course, and then resubmit and ultimately achieve the rating. But the health safety rating and that well seal that is being prominently promoted. We've gotten behind the marketing and the messaging. I'm sure you've seen the advertising campaigns with your Lady Gagas and J-Lo's telling the public to look for the well seal, giving the public a sense for who the International Well Building Institute is. The fact that we've been around for almost a decade certifying healthy spaces. This is not an organization where we just popped up overnight related to COVID. We were responsive to industry requests to carve out a category of the well building standard related to health safety and provide that designation. And so we did respond. But this is something that is a broad global movement at this point. And, we're certainly excited to see the adoption. There are so many sectors that have done such a great job. They should get rewarded for what they've done. This is as much a messaging tool as anything else, right? Is provided that the policies and protocols are in shape according to our criteria. This is a wonderful way to showcase that to an audience, and of course, showcase the fact that a third party reviewed it, and that's the most important piece.
Perfect. Thanks, Dominic, for the question. And I have just another question here from the audience, Peter, from David Gann. I'm not sure. Sorry, David. What does Well say about best technologies for air quality? Do you have anything specific for restaurants? And I know you guys, maybe you could dive into like the work that you guys are doing to ascertain kind of some of these standards. Yeah. And I know you have a lab with Mayo Clinic, right?
So thank you for the question. We have spent better part of 4 or 5 years focused on fine particle filtration. And as an organization, the subsidiary of ours, the International Well Building Institute, focuses on certification and designations and ratings, like I just described. A separate part of our organization focuses on specific solutions and technologies. As a matter of fact, we are now over 200,000 air purification units, wall-mounted air purification units that we've deployed into public classrooms, kindergarten through 12th grade, for the largest school systems in the country. The New York City public school system, Chicago, Boston, Miami-Dade. So many municipalities, I think, view Delos as an organization that separates fact from fiction. There's a hodgepodge of claims right now in air quality, and you really don't know who to believe, and I don't think people necessarily want to just trust the manufacturers. Delos does not manufacture devices, and therefore we can take an agnostic view to examine and in many cases test the claims that are being made by manufacturers. We do have a solution that we have recommended to public schools. We have worked with the manufacturer to really get the pricing down to be so accessible. And you're talking about a 99.97% efficiency level, reducing the viral burden down to 0.007 microns. That's quite smaller than the COVID virus. This is an effective and a very cost-effective way to address indoor air quality without getting into the HVAC, without breaking the ceiling, without doing a ton of labor. Our studies at the Well Living Lab, which was founded in collaboration with the Mayo Clinic, will be released, in fact, on Good Morning America to show the public the quality of that study. And we have found that wall-mounted air purifiers, especially with the technology that we have endorsed and blessed or validated, are much more effective than just straight inline units in the HVAC. And again, you're not talking about heavy labor here. You're talking about, a $300 device covering 500 or 600 square feet. Huge bang for your buck when it comes to reducing that viral load. And this has been tested. This has been validated. There are a lot of air technologies out there where, you have to question the mechanism of action and if there's harmful byproducts. And you certainly want to make sure that we're not just relying on sort of, filter measurements. When you put a filter HEPA, MERV 13, when you put something into an air handling unit or a box and a fan, there's so many variables that change the efficiency of that filter. So we believe in testing the device itself, not just the filter efficiency. It's been extraordinarily effective. We can provide more information on the air units, but again, almost 250,000 air wall-mounted air units deployed through K through 12. This is what's happening as public school systems make a decision on what they need to do to keep the children safe, and it applies to any indoor space. So I certainly would recommend a deeper dive in the restaurant spaces as well.
Yeah, and thank you. I mean, well, you guys are just you got a wealth of knowledge on air quality, and we're going to throw a link up there just for more resources that you can access. If you're interested in learning more about that, we'll throw that up in the chat. But Peter, I just want to open this up a little wider. One of the biggest issues facing restaurants right now is labor. Huge shortages right across the board, and it's like this period has kind of given potential workers a different perspective on the things that they do and what they want to do. Restaurants can be a kind of an unpleasant place to work, right? It's kind of dangerous. There's fire. There's other hot things. I saw an image on LinkedIn yesterday, actually, of a Burger King location where all the workers just quit because conditions weren't, they weren't quite happy with what was going on there. And I guess I wonder, what are your thoughts on how this might be able to assist with that, especially in recruitment efforts? I mean, what's that seal on a location going to do for someone who's on the ground, putting in the hours working there?
Fantastic. I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is as much for stakeholders such as staff and employees as it is for patrons of restaurants, right? This is a great way to inspire confidence with workers in a tight labor market that, the right processes and protocols are being followed. We have seen tremendous demand from commercial clients and Fortune 500 clients. In fact, over 80 Fortune 500 companies are clients of ours pursuing the WELL program. And a lot of their efforts are based on employee retention and attraction and satisfaction, because when you're talking about the indoor environment, the staff is the one that's there all the time. Patrons may come and go and be in for 5 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour, so on and so forth. But the staff is obviously exposed to conditions constantly. And achieving the WELL seal is as much a signal to your staff and your future staff as it is to your patrons. And we have seen that be a major part of the puzzle. You're absolutely right. When you think about the indoor environment, again, this is as much about employees and staff and all stakeholders as it is about guests to these spaces.
Perfect, Peter. And look, you look at that, the time kind of just flies by on these episodes. Yeah. And thanks for focusing on the staff there. But before we go, I do want to bring it back to the guest who's coming in. That front facing. This is kind of like the main thing that this is all about. I don't want to be that guy, but I just want to ask you. I mean, how much does the general guest really care about this? If they're walking in, they see the seal. Are they really looking at the seal, or are they just looking at the McRib is back? Or I mean, there's people walking into these locations. They're willingly ready to stuff some bad cholesterol into their arteries. Are they really caring about whether that location is good for their health? Are they walking in and going, oh, I wonder what the air quality is like? I just want to get your take on that.
Yeah, look, I think that it's a tough burden to put on a guest of any space like that that's there to have lunch or dinner, to go deep and start examining a whole bunch of metrics about air quality and things in the health safety bucket, right? The intention of the designation is to inspire confidence that a credible organization that is in the business of certification of healthy spaces has done that for them, right? And so just looking for the WELL seal is as deep as you need to go. And the purpose there is to take all of that science and all of the work that goes behind that, and it's incredibly rigorous, but message that with one simple sign of confidence so that the guest can see that and feel better. We believe that is a factor in their decisions. I think the last year has taught us that that's the case. There's probably not, many people on earth right now that aren't aware that the space that they're in, where they convene, and how it's being operated does affect their health and well-being. And I think that this has been wrapped into a program where that can be messaged with a lot underneath the hood, but very simply with 4 letters, so that it doesn't take a homework assignment for someone to figure out whether or not the space they're entering is safe or not.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. And thank you for letting me throw that one at you. And I mean, I certainly feel it. I feel like as I'm going back out into the world now, I don't know how to, everything kind of looks scary. So any reassurance is definitely welcome. Now, Peter, that's all we have time for today. But before you go, you're from New York. It's a culinary mecca. What's your go-to restaurant in New York?
Well, I have many in New York City, but most recently, I've obviously been doing a lot of ordering in. But I must say that Cicconi's in Dumbo, right across the Brooklyn Bridge, has phenomenal food, and it's in my backyard. So a lot of my ordering has been from there. But love that restaurant. You had to nail me down and pick one, and that would be the one.
Oh, perfect. And just following on from that, just off the top of my head here, any sort of really leaders in the restaurant space, maybe in New York, maybe independent or chain based, that really kicking goals here with with improving their health and safety in their locations?
Yes, there are. I certainly, look, we want to showcase the thought leadership. That is what our organization does. When your JP Morgans and your Citis and your Goldman Sachs achieve the rating and financials, we let the world know about it. When Brookfield, gigantic real estate company, achieved the health safety rating for every building in its North American portfolio, we let the world know about it. Same thing with T-Mobile. Same thing with Lowe's Hotels. It kind of goes on and on. In the restaurant space, we have several that are pursuing, and we believe we'll get over the line. As soon as they do, that information will become public. But the engines are turning in that regard. I want to reserve that comment until the designation is achieved. Once it is, you will see the seal populated among thousands of the restaurants, and we're looking forward to telling everybody about that in the next couple months.
Super excited to hear that, and make sure we're one of the first people to hear about it. Peter Scialla, thanks so much for joining us on Disrupt today and giving all that information. It's definitely something that our crowd is thinking about, interested in, and they know they need to prioritize. So thanks so much.
Thank you for raising awareness. Great to be with you guys today.
Not a worry. Thanks so much, Peter. And thank you guys for tuning in. That's episode 9 of Disrupt. We love having you here on Thursdays. Our next guest on Disrupt is someone called Aaron Novoshin, someone I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of. He is the co-founder and CEO of both The Culinary Edge and of Starbird. And he's a great mind in the restaurant industry. Looking forward to having a chat with him about what restaurants should be up to right now, what should they be focused on, as well as the really exciting concept Starbird he launched a bunch of years ago. So tune in for that one when we see you next at Disrupt. And more than that, we are also hoping to see you not just here virtually in a tiny little screen anymore, but we want to see you in person again. It's been a while since we met in the flesh. We're going to be back in October, meeting in person in Palm Springs, 17th to 19th of October. Really excited to see you all once again in a physical space. And you know what? There's a lot to talk about. And before we do get to that physical space where we can meet each other again and talk about some of the issues that are going on in the restaurant industry, we're kickstarting the conversation right now. We are running our mastermind series, which we ran earlier in the year. And this is a weird inception image. It's the back of me on a mastermind session talking with other people in the digital roundtable. It doesn't get any crazier than that. But we launched the series again and through the summer yesterday, talking about reinventing formats. We've got a bunch of other intimate closed door sessions happening through July and into August. Head to the link that we're going to put here in the chat and you can sign up to one of those. Start talking with your peers before we meet in person in Palm Springs in October. And that really is all that we have time for today on Disrupt. You've heard enough of my voice. You've seen enough of my mouth moving. Great to have you here. Can't wait to see you on the next episode and have a great rest of the week. Thanks.
I'm gonna act up. I'ma need you to back up. I'ma need you to back up. Yep.